What's good, everybody? You know what time it is. It is time for Elevated Vibes right here on IntellectualRadio.com. Let me let you guys know the phone lines are open, 708-223-8953. Once again, that is 708-223-8953. Or you can always hit us up on Facebook Live. All right? Now, you know who I am, your boy Abdul Rashid, along with
the boss man. Glad to be back here in the studio. I know it's been off a little bit of time and stuff like that. Just sometimes life gets in the way, and
you got to roll with the punches of life, brother.
Man, not only roll, duck, dodge, matrix the heck out of it, dude. You know, I'm doing backflips, watching bullets fly by, you know, trying not to get scathed and, you know, trying not to get touched. But, you know, sometimes you got to do more than roll. You got to tuck, roll,
you got to do all the motions.
Well, you know, go through all of that.
You got to be Keanu Reeves 2.0.
Man, you know, Matrix Reloaded, you know.
There you go.
So, but I'm grateful to be back here in the studio. You know, a lot has happened since we were last here in the studio. We have potentially a new mayor in the city of Chicago. Well, we will have a new mayor in the city of Chicago.
Absolutely.
You know, and stuff. So, you know, a lot has gone on and we got a lot to talk about.
Without a doubt. All right. For today, we're going to start it off with, as we like to call it, the revenge of the woke. All right. Now, everybody, the literal definition of woke goes as follows. Minorities who are alert to racial prejudice and discrimination. All right. Now, unfortunately, the term woke has been weaponized by cancel culture and the far right. So our job today is to reclaim that word. So those who are truly woke, all right, to this societal situation can keep up the good fight. All right, brother, let me hear a little bit.
Look, I mean, here's my take on this woke thing. It is out of control. Like, I think, and you know, and just to give people context, what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about what happened at one of our schools.
Oh,
and
okay.
You know, so I think we're using this wokeness as a reason for cancel culture. And I get to a certain extent what the right is. It's like, you know, yeah, we so woke, but we gonna penalize you for something that was not offensive back in the day, but we're gonna penalize you for it today. You know, like perfect example, you know, Kevin Hart, you know, back in the 80s and 90s made jokes that could be considered homophobic, you know, transphobic, whatever you want to call it. And at the time, they were funny. You know, they were funny, and this was accepted, but we are an evolving society. Is it fair that he is now canceled or was canceled from hosting the Oscars for telling jokes he did 10 years ago? And, you know, he's like, they were jokes and they were funny, and comedians pushed the things. They weren't, you know, and these were jokes that, you know, you know, to quote Dave Chappelle, you know, he said, you know, if my son were to play with dolls, I'll smash his dollhouse over his head. You know, it was funny at the time. You know, we in the early 80s and 90s used a word that began with F with an impunity. You know, it was a way to, you know, question someone's manhood. It was a way to, you know, check somebody, you know, like, don't step to me, you know, you know that word I'm talking about,
without a doubt.
And that was said with impunity and with no regard for, you know, that. Is it fair that I punish you for something you said in the 90s? You know, and we're using that to cancel people. You know, there was an actor who went out on a date, and the date wasn't great, you know, but this woman accused him of being sexually aggressive. Like, he didn't do anything. It was just a bad date. But you're going to risk this man's livelihood, his reputation, because you felt offended. Like, what did he do? Well, he didn't do this. Okay, so that just sounds like a bad date. And so it comes to the point where this wokeness is being trying to use. It's been weaponized.
That's what I meant.
It's weaponized, but it's being weaponized for the purposes of tarnishing people's reputation. You know what I'm saying? And so, I think if everybody watched this weekend, the Chris Rock special, this selective outrage, and the problem is that at some point we become so sensitive that it makes it impossible for us to have dialogue. So to my point with your girl, and I know you took issue with it at the university, the teacher.
Oh, okay.
So to give some context, everybody, what school was it? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember.
We talked about it.
It was out east, if I'm correct.
Was it Cornell? I don't remember.
I'll be fibbing trying to figure it out, brother.
But as I understand the facts, and if I'm wrong, it'll be the first time this year. But anyway, if I'm wrong, this was a course on either religious studies or Islam in particular, and they were covering Islam. Mm-hmm. And the syllabus made it clear that I'm going to show an image of the Prophet Muhammad, the Honorable Prophet Muhammad. Mm-hmm. And even before this class may contain things like that. All right, so it's on the syllabus. Day before class, hey, tomorrow I'm going to be showing, an image of the Honorable Prophet Muhammad. The day of class, hey, this is the day. You don't have to be here. If you're going to be offended by this image, you're more than welcome to leave. This material, and usually when something happens like that, it's not going to be covered on the exam. But this is an educational experience. In education, you're supposed to counter ideas that are contrary to your ideas. She announced it, did it, student stayed in the class. Why is it then a student came forward and then said, oh, I was offended? You can't, now I get it. What you're saying is there are no images, things like that. You're not supposed to, My thing is this. You were warned, not once, not twice, not 3 times. At some point, it's on you. It's on you. So we have this selective outrage, and this teacher was fired. Fired. Like, why do I have to get pre-clearance to teach ideas? I can teach ideas. If I can teach, one of the famous things, and we can talk about the CRT. The people who oppose CRT are the same people we see in those photos who were yelling at the little Ruby Ridge going to school.
Yes.
That's why they don't want to do that. This was for educational experience. And we're using it to cancel people.
I agree. But see, the thing was, which I will go back to every time. Now, the teacher, the professor, did everything right, but one thing. She did not CYA. Something like that may be a little touchy. Even though you want to teach it, and it may have been a viable reason to teach it. May have been. I don't remember what it was, but that what she should have done, go to her superiors. Hey, superior, can I do this? Will it be blowback? Will, whatever. Because once that superior says, go ahead and do it, it's not on that professor no longer. It's on that superior.
Let me clarify, because I pulled up the argument. I pulled it up. Mm-hmm. A liberal arts professor at Minnesota University has reportedly been fired. Yeah, after she showed her students images of the Prophet Muhammad. Hamline University adjacent professor Erica Lopez Prater lost her job after featuring depictions of the religious figure, despite her class being focused on Islamic art, according to the New York Times. All right, so this is the focus of this class. This, reporter preemptively placed warnings inside her course syllabus that the class would feature images of certain religious figures like Buddha and Muhammad. Students were asked by Prater to contact her with any concerns, but the New York Times says that none of them did so, despite depictions of the Prophet are prohibited by the religion, blah, blah, blah. Despite her warnings, a senior named, I won't say her name, joined the class and went to administrators to complain about the professor's choice to display images of the Prophet Muhammad. She gathered, this other student gathered reports, support from other Muslim students about the issue, and regardless of whether these students were taking her class or not. But she tried to talk to the student, but reiterate that she had already did trigger warnings. So she gave trigger warnings.
I agree with you. She did everything but that one thing. And because you were just saying how it wasn't a syllabus, I am surprised that one of her superiors is not fired as well. Because if I'm correct, now everybody, y'all can correct me, please hit us up, let us know. But if I'm correct, a lot of the department heads see these syllabus anyway from every professor in their department. Well, at least they're supposed to, you know. So personally, I'm surprised that one of them ain't caught it too.
But here's the thing. This is not indoctrination. This is teaching. You're taking an Islamic art class that you yourself went to. She didn't force you. No one forced you at gun. And that's what I'm saying. It has gone too far. It is not the right who's canceling. It's us on the left that's canceling.
I agree.
It's stuff like this that gives them ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
That gives them ammunition to say, you know, and that's why I'm saying this wokeness has gone too far. This selective outrage. You know, you can't criticize the gays. You can't criticize the Jews. You can't even talk about Palestine with being apartheid because that's somehow Jewish hate. But we can't talk about the conditions that exist in Palestine. I have known people who have gone to Palestine and said it's an open market prison.
Mm-hmm.
It is a prison.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
But we can't talk about how they just selected Benjamin Netanyahu, who is not a friend of Palestine, has clamped down on it. And all we get is selective news. Like all we hear is about how they launch rockets and stuff, but you don't hear about how the Israelis done killed children, how they done went in and part of these settlements. If they're moving into a settlement, they're moving people out. All right. These things are happening, but we can't do that. We can't have a critical dialogue because we're supposed to be so woke that somehow, if I somehow taken a position that is opposite of yours, that deserves me being canceled.
But see, also too, you have to think about it's a lot of selective wokeness as well.
Because, we choose what to be
right, and this is what I'm saying. Because if you're woke to the truth of everything. All right, not just certain truths. All of it.
But what I'm saying is we got to stop this. We were talking about this in the car. This is why, you know, everybody wants to talk about these kids being soft. But you know why they soft? It's us. It's us. Well, I won't say us because we didn't raise these millennials and whatever, but our kids. And it's because we gave them all awards. Everybody gets a participation. Dude, I remember in grammar school, I was about 3rd or 4th grade, and the gym teacher was giving out, you know, like trophies. You know what I'm saying? Like who did the most push-ups, who did the most pull-ups, and certain kids were getting things. And I remember being devastated that I could not get this trophy, right? I remember playing at, you know, South Shore, the YMCA South Shore, and being 3rd place up and not getting nothing. I remember.
Hey, you remember sometimes you may have not only been 3rd place, you may have been last, and you got clowned.
Well, you know, we played on our basketball teams, but only the first 2 teams got awards, right? There is something, as hard as that was, and I remember even coming up through grammar school, we didn't get awards for academic performance. You didn't get awards for academic performance. We didn't get awards for perfect attendance. You got an award if you didn't miss up to 8th grade.
Right.
That one kid, like, dude, you ain't never been sick. How did you not get chicken pox? We all had chicken. How did you not get chicken pox? Like everybody was out. How you get perfect attendance when we were coming up from in the 80s and 70s and 80s? Everybody was out in 4th and 5th grade, at least for chicken pox.
Yeah, it was at least a week.
At least a week.
Right, at least.
I remember I was one of the last ones to get it, and I missed a field trip, and I was hot. So we've raised these kids to think that they should get some. And here's why I remember I asked my mom one time, why don't we give awards for academics? Because you're supposed to do good. What? Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait, hold on. What you mean? You're supposed. We don't give rewards for doing what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah, but mom, I'm topping my class. I should get some. You're supposed to be
strive to be top of your class. Every
So,
student in there is supposed to strive to be top of the class.
So I'm one of the top of the student, but you ain't the top of the student, are you? Well, no, girls a little bit, but whatever.
Yeah.
But I should get something. No. We don't reward what you're supposed to do. All right. So this wokeness, is a form of control. You know what I'm saying? So we can't have honest conversations. Perfect example. Your other boy, Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart came out, one of the first people who came out and said, yeah, this might be from one of the Chinese labs. Like,
Oh, yes.
And they tarnished this Jon Stewart, who probably more liberal than I am. You know what I'm saying?
You and me both.
more to the left than we are. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But the mere idea that he suggested, now it is also context. It is all called context because we had Agent Orange saying that this was calling people, and there's a difference. We're talking about this being from the government, not Chinese people doing it. And that's what he did. He weaponized it. And he weaponized it to such a point that we could not have an honest conversation because, as I said, the right is really good at weaponizing their crazies.
You ain't lying about that one.
They weaponize their crazies. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, they just made MTG president pro tem speaker pro tem of the House. Oh, Lord, yeah, I ain't even gonna touch that one. But they weaponize, so we cannot have an honest dialogue. To me, when this first came out, it meant being aware of the cultural context and the cultural cues that people who have systematically been oppressed and being cognizant of those. Example.
And also, let's tag on to that. And also refusing to go back to sleeping within the ignorance of it.
Okay. Example. We used to use the word handicap. We don't use that word anymore. Do you know why?
Tell it.
It's because in the day, because we did not take care of our citizens, the only way that the people who were physically disabled were able to get money was to put their handy and put their cap.
In the cap, okay.
It was handicap.
Right.
So it's not the most positive thing. Another example, and we all used it. We used to go down on Roosevelt Road and get something with a Polish. What was that called?
Of course. Of course. And because of this, folks, we have to
it wasn't called
own words.
Anybody over the age of 42 know what I'm talking about. It wasn't always called Maxwell Polish. And you had to go down on Roosevelt Road to get it.
Yes.
The ones that you see around now, no. It's not the same.
It's nowhere near the same.
No. You had to go to a certain place.
Right.
And matter of fact, I'm pretty sure if you looked at some old Chicago maps,
it would tell you exactly where it is.
That community was called.
Right.
We don't call it that no more, right?
Right.
Is it wrong to punish me if I did use that word back then? You gonna hold me accountable for something I did back then? And that's the problem with this wokeness. Another example. This is why I'm drawing a line.
Okay, come on.
These books, they want to make them more, we changing books now, right? Like Ian Fleming, James Bond. What's the movie he did with the voodoo? Well, you remember it was Roger Moore. Roger Moore was
I mean,
it was
going back, I knew it was Roger
was
Moore.
it Moore?
But I just
Was it
can't
Roger
think
Moore?
of-
Was that Sean Connery? The one where he was voodoo, and it took place in New York, Harlem, and you know he uses the N word a lot. You know, and
that might have been Connery. I think that
was Connery. Was
yeah,
that
I think it was Connery.
If y'all know, please let us know. Give us a call here, 708-223-8953. But if they want to change the N word, and I'm like, why? Like, that was appropriate cultural context at the time. I think it is a short road when we start changing those words. It's like reading Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, which they don't read anymore because it uses that word. And I'm like, well, A, it's still great literature. B, we provide a cultural context for people to understand. Because here's the thing, too.
Now, okay, wait. I get what you're saying. If anything, I believe that, you know, if you want to do this type of change or whatever, put a disclaimer in there in the beginning. You understand?
Another trigger warning? When
Wait,
do you have where is there enough trigger warning? I gotta let you know, trigger warning.
Okay.
Trigger warning, start my triggers. Like, okay.
But the thing is,
the movie you may watch may contain sexual innuendo, scenes of violence.
Yes. And then kids start looking for it. Go ahead.
Yeah. The movie you're about to watch contains scenes of violence, sexual suggestions, innuendo, which may or may slightly offend you.
Right.
Parent viewer discretion is advised. Like, what?
I mean, you should put, okay, I get, and I'm trying to,
soft.
I'm trying to, whoa. I'm trying to settle both ends. All right.
You can't.
Because don't get me wrong, I do get what you're saying. All right. This was made in that time. This was the mentality of that time. Bring it. You know what I mean? I get that, but then you have these other ones out here. So at least we keeping that same mentality. We keeping that time capsule, if that's the best way to put it. But we're also throwing it out there so you have knowledge of what's about to happen. You know what I mean?
Oh, no.
What?
No,
come on.
No. Look, okay, so
Ronald
Dahl, who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda, Fantastic Mr. Fox, and James and the Giant Peach, have been edited in an effort to remove offensive language and promote more inclusivity. I
don't even remember what would be in Charlie.
Exactly. That's my point, dude.
I'm just sitting there thinking about
I literally was thinking, I was like, yeah, what was in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to be offensive? Like, oompa, doompa, doompity.
I mean, I don't know.
What? Right. We read it just fine.
So that's another one, y'all. Y'all know what it is? Hit us up.
We read the book just fine. Love Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Hated the one with Johnny Depp. Love the original.
Right.
Love the original.
Right.
What is, because he made fun of a bit kid? I mean, what when you can change something to be more inclusive, you start changing ideas.
You open up the flood.
You open it. It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope, my friend.
But this is why I said what I said. So I'm saying, yes, keep it. Throw that out there so that,
No, you read stuff, dude.
Well, I mean, talk to me.
Look.
Because, what? You're reading the book. You can't add one more page, two more pages saying this, and there you go.
Why? Just read the book. The ideas that you're expanding. Dude,
talk to me.
Romeo and Juliet. Should we have a trigger warning? This book contains suggestions of sexual endo, violence, and suicide. Viewer discretion is advised. I mean,
you're still.
First of all,
you're still keeping
First of all, once I put the trigger warning in, I done ruined the book for you. I done ruined the book. Suicide. I don't want to. Hey, hold on. Trigger warning.
You don't have
they
to
die at the end.
Romeo
Juliet.
Whoa.
They
you
die
don't
at the
have to say everything about it, but you just.
But clearly I do, because this teacher gave a warning.
That's
and she still no.
See,
same side of the coin.
The deal with that. All right, you got to understand your situation. What is just like what you talked about with the Kevin Hart thing from I don't know how many years ago.
The 90s.
I agree with you on the fact that he shouldn't have been canceled. No, he should not have been, because that was what was over the time. But you've seen that even before he he was in the conversation of hosting these Grammys or whatever it was, you know, his shows were different even before that. So anybody should have known he grown up from that. All right, and people
he evolved. It's not
right, and this is what that's what I'm saying.
Right.
People evolve all the time, just like the society evolves. But then also the society also has to look back and say, "Oh, okay, that was then." We paying attention on how you're doing now. If he was just still being, I can't think of an individual, but if he was still being just a ignoramus. Then cancel them.
But that's the whole thing. Like, comedians have to be able to push the line. Educators have to push the line. Right. There was the reason we are where we are
evolving with the society.
But and I get that, but you shouldn't be held like I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So why are you trying to cancel me for something I said 10 years ago?
But
you know what I'm saying?
You're not, if you are not. Example, and I know people don't like to talk about him, Kels. All right. He was still doing what he was doing that he got caught up on.
Well, that's because his kids were under 17, dog.
But hear what I'm saying.
He didn't evolve.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
No. This is about ideas, the free flow of information and ideas, and the ability to have to disagree with people. Just because I disagree with you, I don't agree with everybody on everything. Like, you know how I feel about the Second Amendment. You know, a lot of my people on my side of the fence are like, no, they're bad. I'm like, no, they're bad when you don't have one and need one. You know, they're bad when they got one and you don't. That's when it's bad. Like, you know, that's called a bad day. Not this kid. Like, no, you got one, I got one, I got two. So, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, but you have the right to feel the way you feel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
you have your own rights.
You have and you know, as long as we are dealing in facts, now alternative facts, not your opinions. As long as we're dealing with facts and the interpretation of facts, yeah, okay, that's fine.
Not Tucker Carlson facts.
Oh my God, I mean, you talking about lying as much as man. This dude acted like there's 30 days in February and you got 2 left feet. I mean, Fox lies so bad and. Here's the thing: they knew they were lying, but that's a side point. We'll get back to that. But here's the thing: look, if you are so sensitive that we can't talk about it, then there's no need for dialogue. You just want to indoctrinate me. All right. So if you take an Islamic art class, in which there's not 1, not 2, but 3 warnings, and you are that sensitive. First of all, okay, the student got the right to do what she want to do and be offended. That's cool. You know, I fault the university for firing. It's like you volunteered for this class. You are an adult. You're going to encounter ideas that I listened to my wife bemoan, like dealing with, and I shouldn't say that. Let me strike that. I don't want to put her business out there. I have heard from numerous sources how hard it is to work with some of these millennials. Like they'll give them, you know how you have to rate yourself on a job?
Yes.
They're giving themselves all 5s. All 5s. Like, yo, I see you don't suffer from humility. Like, I mean,
they should know better. But then go ahead.
But they don't. And you know why? Because we gave each and of them an award for participating. We told them that somehow showing up to your job was enough. Somehow that your boss is not supposed to criticize you. Oh, my boss made me feel bad. Okay. My boss made me feel bad too. But guess what?
How did Eddie Murphy say, have a Coke and a smile?
But go ahead. I mean, it's like everybody has a job. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about like abuse on the job. Yeah. But like, it's hurting my self-esteem and all of that stuff. Like, if the criticism is warranted, and I've had criticism that was warranted. Like, yeah, you're right. And I've had criticism that wasn't. I push back, and after that, I still got to do my job. But you know what I'm saying? It's we.
But see, okay,
I can't be your boss and your psychologist at the same time.
And this is what I'm about to say. All right. And I get what you're saying that, you can't be just la 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 over everything. That's not life. It don't go like that. I get that. But then also, and I know why they put some of the things out there, because some of the people aren't built the same. You
No,
understand what I'm saying?
it's
They're
because
not.
nobody wants to be canceled, and
What
with the rise of
what no what I'm saying is, though, how we spoke about the softness and all that, and we
soft.
well, yeah. And you're trying to include the kids to keep them feeling good and all of that. And I get that, some kids, they don't care. They lose or they come in second, third, or whatever, they don't care. While you get other ones, they get they feel like they're gonna jump off a building. You understand what I'm saying?
Look, I think
and they try to make it better for those children, which I understand, but it's just went out of control.
No, dude, look. Most of our generation was coming home to empty houses. We were all I can't think of one kid who was coming home that wasn't a latchkey.
No, I get what you're saying on that. And you're right.
But what I'm saying is it built up a certain resiliency. And I don't know what happened to that. Like,
they tried to make it where those who could not catch up with that resiliency can catch up. I get what they did, but it just fell out of control.
No, dudes. Here's the issue.
Come on.
Resiliency is built through overcoming challenges. And we've taken the challenges away from these kids. We have, in an essence, to make their life easier, we've done something to them. That's why we're seeing the rise in this angst of teenage girls and guys. Why we're seeing the rise in suicide rates. Why we're challenged this generation. Like, who probably fared the best out of COVID? Generation X. Because most of us grew up by ourselves.
Yeah.
Most of us grew up by ourselves. I swear to God, I was looking at
a lot of the older generation was, okay, I'm by myself. It wasn't no big deal.
It wasn't no big deal. Look.
I mean, you had your few that wasn't, but you had a lot of them that were like, okay, yeah.
Look, our generation was the generation, and I'm not trying to laud our generation or whatever. We have our shortcomings as well.
Yeah.
But Generation X, when it came down to being home and by themselves, overall, Generation X was like, well,
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Right.
You gotta remember, we were going outside at 10:30, 11 o'clock, not coming home till 6:30, 7 o'clock, and nobody had a clue where you were.
That's true.
Nobody had a clue where you were.
As long as you came home before those street lights came on, right, you was good.
You was good. Like, if you were trying to kidnap some kids, the 80s and the 90s would have been able to do it because you at least had a 6-hour head start. We didn't have no signs on the expressway talking about look out for license plate. We had milk cartons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen? No, I ain't seen this. Well,
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So in an effort to ease our life, knowledge has increased our intelligence, but not our wisdom. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta check this wokeness. Like, we trying to cancel each other too much. Just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean they deserve to be canceled. They have their own ideas, their own thoughts. Now, I'm not talking about cancel, people who seek to diminish you because of who you are or what you are. Like, everybody has the right to pursue their own inner goddess or God and manifest the gifts that the universe has given unto them. Everybody has that right. And I don't have, if your manifestation don't make sense to me, that's cool, because that's between you and your God and your universe, or your Muhammad, your Allah, your Yahweh, your
okay, but what about those, especially the right, because I'm about to touch on them.
Okay.
What about those like Ron DeSantis, who's trying to destroy that right?
But he's trying to diminish.
No, he's trying to completely obliterate.
Right. What I'm saying, wokeness is for the purposes of cancellation, for disagreeing. CRT or whatever they want to call it, they want to eradicate history because it makes people feel bad. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a fundamental disagreement. Like, you know,
And, right. And what I'm saying,
I'll give you an example.
What I'm saying, you got those out there that won't even like. We can speak on a fundamental disagreement, and we could work out something. Those out there that they don't even want your thought process to exist.
That's what. And there's a line. So let me give you an example.
All right.
You know, they're dealing with this, and I don't know the facts. Please forgive me. So I'm just speaking hypothetically, but apparently there was this swim race. The girl from Florida came in second. She lost to this guy that was, or excuse me, person that's transgender. Okay.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with transgender. I, however, don't think it's fair for them to compete in women's sports. That's you know, I fundamentally think it's unfair. You know, I don't care how many hormones you take or how much estrogen you take, you're still gonna have, I would believe, and this is not scientific, I'll talk to a doctor, and like I said, if I hear from someone who can change my mind, I'll listen to it. But at some point, you're fundamentally got more testosterone in you than a female will have. And so therefore you have a naturally competitive advantage. So if you're doing something like MMA, boxing, swimming, you, regardless of how much stuff you take, your foundation is not that of woman. Your foundation is that of man.
Okay, let me ask you this.
So you have this natural competitive edge. I mean, even just mentally, men are just more competitive than women.
Let me ask you this. How would you make it fair? Because yes, I understand what you're saying, but then yet now, you know, I don't know the numbers, so I can't sit here and say, well, this percent is that percent. I can't do that because I don't know the numbers. But there's a certain amount of people, I don't care who they are, if they're transgender, male, whatever. You know, now you're alienating them who wants to do a sport, whatever they consider themselves as.
Then we might need to come up with a new.
This is what I'm saying. What is, you know, what would you consider fair? How would you make it to that point where it's fair and somewhat agreeable for everybody?
They may have to compete against other similarly situated people. But to put them in a ring with a female or to put them in a swimming pool, I think that's fundamentally unfair.
Okay.
You know, and that's not a slight. I don't have a problem with it. I do have a problem if my daughter has to go against one. Against a person of who is transgender. An individual. So like an individual who's transgender. You know, I think it's just fundamentally unfair. You know, but how they live their life, how they choose to personify that which is within them, do you, boo? You know, right. I don't have a problem with that. But
I hear you.
You know,
all I'm saying is the job for these organizations and all that, their job, I mean, they need to sit down and do it. Let's make it fair.
Fair. But I mean,
you know, if you got to get a big, gigantic panel for whoever, I don't know how many people, but it's their job, which they should have been doing. I don't know why they have not, but their job is to make it fair. That's their job.
Should I be canceled? Should I be canceled because that's what I think? Should I be canceled for that? I don't think so.
No, something like that, they should bring you to the table. Like I said, certain things, you know.
But my idea on the right, though, on the left, oh, you're against them. No, I'm not. I'm just against them competing in this one element. Now, if you're talking about something like archery or, you know, shooting or something where it's not necessarily, forgive me, mano y mano, you know what I'm saying? But if it's not versus, you know, if it's something dealing with accuracy or something like that, then okay, sure. But when we're talking about like these MMA sports, swimming, bicycling, you know, and it's always the ones who are transitioning from men to women. We don't see the women who are transitioning from woman to man competing, necessarily. I haven't seen that. You know, where they choose to go to the restroom, I really don't care.
But again,
I don't care. Like,
and that's what is needed, not just two guys in the White House or somebody at the state level. You need a all together panel representing everybody of the people.
yeah,
That let's hammer this out and let's
but
get it
it's
right.
not. But you know why that won't happen? It's because it's been so politicized. It has been so politicized that it makes it hard to have an honest concept. And that's the problem when politicians get involved. That's the problem when Ron DeSantis get involved. He don't know nothing about education, you know. And for him to do this, and especially to cancel one people's culture, especially when we don't do an adequate job of covering anybody's history except for those of non-color. You know what I'm saying? We don't talk about, how we separated Native American children and sent them to schools and took them away from it. Wasn't what happened under Donald Trump, the separating of children from their families, is as American as apple pie. Yeah. We have done that repeatedly throughout history.
They've done it to the Japanese. They've done it to a bunch of different people.
They kept the Japanese families together. They put them in internment camps. Okay. But I'm talking about literally taking Native American children.
Yeah, I know from the time that you're talking about with that. Yeah.
And putting them in schools by the Catholics, where they were abused physically, sexually, mentally. We did that with Black children. I just got through listening to something, a podcast where they were talking about this school in Alabama. This school was so bad that the people who went there are still suffering physical disabilities. Like they were beaten, they were raped, they were molested. This is the history. We don't talk about how we used to hang Mexicans in this country. We don't talk about how bad we treated the Chinese in this country. This is who we fundamentally are. This is the fact. And this is why it's so important. And that's why I have a problem with changing words, because the only way you can show that you have evolved is you have to know what your starting point was. So, and that's my issue. That's my issue. That's the problem with this wokeness and canceling. It doesn't give you a time to truly appreciate how far we have evolved as a country. Are we perfect? No. But are we evolved from taking children? We've evolved our juvenile justice. But if you always want to change the history and show, only the best and brightest and America was always good. No, it wasn't. Right. America was one of the most horrendous countries in terms of its treatment of its own people. And we still are. We lock up more of our citizens. We're the richest nation on earth. You know why? Because the government don't spend money on its people like the other European countries. Exactly. This is a hard country to grow old and retire in.
Yes, it is.
Look at what happened with Bruce Willis. Do you think Bruce Willis would be able to do what he's able to do with the level of dementia he has if he hadn't had the money and stuff like that? No, he would be in a nursing home.
Of course not. And he'd be lucky to be there.
He's lucky to be there. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be able to have an honest conversation. So this whole thing about, now the FBI and some other government agencies are saying, no, we think this might have been created in a Chinese lab. We can't rule it out, and we can have that discussion without blaming Chinese visitors or Chinese Americans. You don't do that to people, especially in light of, what has happened to Asian Americans.
As divided as we are, and we are divided. I mean, on some levels we're not, and some people could come together and do something, but the lines, unfortunately, are there. All right. How do we, break those lines and bring it where people can sit at the table and we can, hammer some of these things out? I mean, from the things with the Chinese to everything that you just said. Okay.
I don't know.
Because, I still look at, and, we spoke about him, he's my favorite punching bag, Ron DeSantis. All right. The people down there, letting him do whatever he wants.
But he speaks to a certain population.
Are they not a democracy or just straight authoritarian government? What is this?
The problem is that our politicians are no longer in the service of the people. They are in it for power's sake. And so that's why, John McCain and Obama were, and I kind of blame John McCain because he started this all with the selection of Sarah Palin. When you start catering to your most extreme dynamics or your extreme, and politicians no longer are chosen by the people. The politicians choose the people. This this gerrymandering, this selective. I get to select my people, and we draw all these crazy ward districts and stuff. So until we're able to break that, you're going to continue to see it. There's more. And we allow them to divide us. We allow them to put us in our own camps. We allow them to be tribal. There's something fundamentally nice about belonging to a tribe. It allows me to say, I feel good and you're bad. And when we have that kind of thing, you're never going to see any change in this country. So you ask me, how do we do it? Honestly, and I hate to say this, Marjorie may be onto something. Sometimes you just got to fight it out. Like,
and that's the thing. The people are the many.
No, but there are people out there who DeSantis appeals to. There's a reason Donald Trump is still leading the polls. There's a certain part of the population that he appeals to. He doesn't need to cater to his middle. His base is rousing, and it's easy to live in tyranny than it is to live in democracy. That's the problem on the left. Like, you're trying to govern. When you're trying to govern, you got to build consensus and all of that stuff. The other side don't care about governing. They just want power for power's sake. Like, you've heard them. Inflation is an issue. The feds are going up on the interest rate. They thought it was only going to be a quarter point. They might be going up a whole nother point. Right. So I say all that to say is, like I said, it may be, she may be onto something. Sometimes, people just got to fight it out. And then there has to be healing and reconciliation. This government, this country made its most advances in terms of its people after times of strife. So passage of Social Security, passage of Medicare came after, our soldiers went to war, passage of the GI Bill, the beginning of the Civil Rights Act took place after Reconstruction. You know what I'm saying? That's the history of this country. We fight. And it is from that devastation that we start to get these bills. So, it's hard to believe, but people were against Social Security at one time.
Yeah.
That's you just like, wait,
but then yet
guaranteed retirement
the right still is trying. They've done their things to still try to tear it apart.
I mean, and that's there's always that strain, that push, that pull. There was a time when people were against Medicare. Food stamps wasn't this thing in this country. That started out of the Black Panther movement, feeding people. Public education, that wasn't a thing in this country. Guess when it came about? Right after the Civil War, when they had to educate 4 million African Americans who had just been released from bonditude and servitude.
And it took a long time for that, because at first they didn't want to do that. And you really, I think, I want to say it was after 6th grade or whatever, you had to pay for your education starting then. I think it was something of that level.
The GI Bill, that came after, World War I, and our veterans are coming home and not having no money. So you ask me, what is it going to take? It's going to take some kind of fight. If it don't, and we just gotten used to peacetime, but that's not the history of our country. The 5-day work week, that came after laborers, when they were trying to break the strikers, and they would bring in, these people,
the labor movement,
the labor movement, the scabs, and they would hire private police, the Pinkertons, to break the unions. Up until then, everybody was working 7 days a week.
Yes.
Minimum wage and child labor laws came because of those things. We have this history of expansion and contraction. And right now we're in a period of contraction, and it gets to a point where people are like, enough is enough, and so that's what it's going to take. The fact is that we're just afraid of it, because all of us, for the majority, except for,
isn't
the generation baby boomers, who are the offspring of those who went to war, with the exception of Vietnam War. Vietnam War, you got to remember, wasn't a war that was fought by everybody. Right. We just got used to peacetime and trying to work things out. But the fact is that,
but see, the thing
we got to fight.
Thing is, too, okay, we got to fight, and it always comes behind the fight. I agree with you. We look at the things of history, it does. But isn't that a certain act of lunacy when you do the same thing over just to get somewhat of a result? No, I mean, you have the knowledge and know how to figure it out and do it. All you got to do is sit down and do it. But the problem is, you rather have the other way, and it's just
when you have certain people committed to a certain kind of way. Yeah, slavery we got rid of slavery when we killed enough of them. Mm-hmm. I'm not advocating violence or anything like that, but that's how we got rid of it. We killed more of them than they killed us. We beat them into submission.
Yeah,
and after that, we got the beginning of the Civil Rights Act.
That's what I'm talking about. Just like your girl MTG was calling for that, the divorce of the red states to the blue states. But it's like, is that not an act of lunacy to try to go back to the same thing? And the people are not waking up to see that. Hey, you support this imbecile?
Look, there's this great philosopher. His name was Joe Bankhead. And
go ahead.
And he had this great saying. He said, if I can't appeal to your mind, then something's going to appeal to your behind. That was my first lawyerly lesson. He taught me about appeals. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So let Mississippi figure out what it's going to do without help from the federal government. Let Alabama figure out what it's going to do. Most of the states who are most in need, the 11 states that are most in need of federal subsidy and aids, red states. Yeah, let them go. Figure it out. Figure out your economy. Okay, cool. Oh, now you got some act right. Okay, yeah,
Texas didn't even want to be on the power grid, and you seen what happened.
Hey, but people want that freedom. You want the freedom? Like the man in Texas, like, oh, y'all too reliant on the government. Like, no, dude, the government's supposed to provide for the common welfare. Like, what do you want me to go do when y'all don't provide electricity? Go down and chop down some telephone poles? Like, y'all supposed to prepare for this.
That's correct.
This is the government's job to be prepared for catastrophes. Now, I'm not saying you can't prevent the tragedy, but you're supposed to be ready to deal with it.
Yeah.
Who gets prepared to be without electricity for 2 weeks? Even if I had a generator, what am I going to do for 2 weeks?
Right. That generator ain't going to last.
That generator ain't going to last. I don't have chainsaws. And a matter of fact, I submit to you, if I went out and cut down a tree, police probably coming and arrest me. Hey, dog, what you do? Well, my man said we're supposed to be self-sufficient. So I'm out here with my right. Right. I'm trying down trees, not only for me and my neighbors. We trying to build, fires. Yes. You know what I'm saying? So this is what the government's supposed to do, but they want to talk about people being soft. No, that's the government's failure. And the problem is we are committed to this because of who we continue to elect and choose, or who continue to choose us. This gerrymandering has to stop. Once this gerrymandering stops, we get some real election reform in all this country, then it'll stop. I digress. But anyway, this is about revenge of the woke. And that's what it comes about. We are gone too far with this. We've gone too far. We've raised a soft generation. You can't criticize. You can't do anything. And we want to cancel everybody. Oh, how dare you disagree? I'm not supposed to agree with everything you said. I'm not supposed to. My cultural background, how I was raised and all of that stuff, like I said, I'm not supposed to agree. Now, like I said, there are people who believe in the death penalty. I don't. You know what I'm saying? I don't. Does that mean I think this person should be canceled and I think they're a murderer and horrendous and all of that stuff? No. There are people who support who don't support abortion. I don't necessarily want to cancel them. They are entitled to their beliefs and their God. Now, to the point that it affects me, well, that's between you and your God. My God said he gave me a doctor. And this doctor got knowledge. And I want this doctor to apply his knowledge because it was God-given.
But even with that abortion thing, they became way too extreme with that, on the fact that, some women have to go and do it on the fact. Now, I'm not talking about money factor, nothing like that, but to their health.
Look,
and something that it may hurt, severely hurt the baby and may kill the mother.
I mean, like I said, if you know your baby's gonna be born with spinal deficit, I forget how you say it, but you know what I'm talking about, the thing where they only gonna last, 2 or 3 weeks after.
I mean,
think
to me, that's the thing of torture.
That's torture. So, but just because you think they should be, that doesn't mean I want to cancel you.
Right.
You are entitled to your beliefs up until the point where your beliefs impact my ability to live. So yeah, and that's why I'm saying on this one, the revenge of the woke is gone too far. It's gone too far.
I just think that those who are truly woke by the true definition of woke, not what those of the cancel culture, those of the right have made it, but those who are truly, hey, I know the truth of what this country, this society, because you can't only say this country, because some of the same things are in other nations as well. All right. And I don't want to abide by the rules, but I'm not going to abide and just be sleep about it. And I am going to tell the truth when it's time to tell the truth. Those folks who are truly woke should have the platform. They should have the right to say that they are woke, not not the other ones.
Woke. I think
not the other ones that weaponized it.
Yeah,
I'm saying.
I think wokeness is the term woke is used to weaponize people who are considerate of the cultural contexts in which other people operate, and the right has used that word to weaponize that. Like just because I give consideration and awareness and attention to, do I necessarily agree with this? What's your pronoun kind of thing? No, not necessarily. But you have the right to be called what you want to be called. You know what I'm saying? Now,
I agree if even with that pronoun.
I'm not calling another dude honeyflower, like call me honeyflower. No, I'm
can't do that.
HF. I'll call you HF, but I ain't calling you honeyflower, know.
Right. Yeah, right. And that's what I was about to say, that, I cannot I should not be penalized because with that pronoun and so forth, that I may just, make that mistake and call person who is changing to a woman still a man. I don't feel like I should be penalized. No. You know what I mean?
I mean, people have a right to be called what.
And then I'm gonna look as I see you as, and then you correct me, say, okay, my first thing, and I've been corrected. My bad. And then I'll go on from there. Right. But I should not get torn down.
Right. I mean, you can only make certain assumptions. So if Lou Alcindor can become Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Cassius Clay become Muhammad Ali, everybody has a right to be address how they want to be and to live the life that they want to live. And no one has the right to steal that joy from how we are all put on this earth to fulfill our purpose that the universe, Allah, God, Yahweh, Muhammad, whoever has put you here on this earth for, Right. And so to the extent that I can allow you to live your life the best and you allow me to live my life the best, then we're good. You know what I'm saying? What's the old saying? Live and let live, and I agree with that. So, yeah.
All right, y'all. Before we get up out of here, I'm going to do as usual because I'm going to keep it going my favorite punching bag. Ron DeSantis want to try to cancel Black History and not speak about it. So every chance that we get, we're going to throw out a different person just so that, y'all can turn around and study about the individual and so forth. We're going to keep history going. All right. This week's, we're going to talk about Stokely Carmichael, better known as Kwame Ture, was one of the original SNCC freedom riders, and he also helped form the All African People's Revolutionary Party in 1972. Final thoughts, brother?
As always, I want to know this week if you are guilty. I want to know if you're guilty of talking to yourself with love. I want to know if you're guilty of treating yourself right. I want to know if you're guilty of practicing unmerciful kindness to yourself. If you're guilty of giving yourself praise. As I told you, this year is all about being unapologetically kind to yourself. And if you have to answer not guilty, then you have a problem. I want you to practice this week being unmercifully kind, being gracious, being loving to yourself. We allow sometimes the demons to speak louder than our angels. Don't allow that to happen. And if you need help hearing your angels, reach out to someone who's more in touch with your angel, because sometimes people see our light better than we can see our own light. Sometimes we just live in our own darkness. We believe the lesser things about ourselves. And you should always have someone who you can reach out to and who can see your light and remind you of your light. And also, I'm reading this thing, 5 Second Habit, Mel Robinson. I want you to practice this week. And I give all credit to her. This in the mornings, right after you brush your teeth, just give yourself a high five in the mirror, because we associate high fiveness with praise and doing well. High five yourself. Everything that you have been through, you are a survivor. Everything that you have been through, you're a survivor. There's no quitting you. And how do I know this, Mike? You say, how do you know that, Mike? Because you're here listening to this. You're listening to this podcast. And the fact is that if you're listening to this podcast, that means you still have a purpose to serve. You still have a goal to reach. The world and this universe ain't done with you. So this week, believe in yourself unmercifully. Be ungodly gracious and kind to yourself. Do not allow the demons that exist in all of us that somehow yell and make us feel unworthy and makes us feel short and not living up to our goals. Tune them out. Tune them out and listen to your angels. And call me and say, or text me, or put on our Facebook, I am guilty. I'm guilty of being kind to myself. I don't want to be found not guilty. I don't want to be found innocent of that. I am guilty of being unmercifully kind. I am guilty of being gracious to myself. I am guilty of loving myself. And think about that. Guilty of loving yourself. Is there a better crime to be committed for? I don't think there is. Be guilty of it. Until next week.
And all right, real quick, y'all. The Creator has given us all different gifts, all different roles to play, to build, to be better. All right. And instead of attacking each other and tearing each other down, let's take that time. Let's build with one another to make everything greater for the next generation. All right. This is Elevated Vibes. We will catch y'all next week. Peace.